Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa, and I'm delighted to be your worship associate this morning. We acknowledge that our FirstU campus is located on traditional, unsurrendered, and unceded Algonquin Anishinaabeg territory, and that the work of reconciliation is a responsibility of our congregation and of all Canadians. Our goal is to educate ourselves and all who have ears to listen, to be of service to those who are at risk, and to advocate for justice. With current COVID restrictions, we are bringing you Sunday service again from home. Thank you for welcoming us into your home. Do take care and take advantage of online opportunities at FirstU to stay in touch during this time. If you are new to FirstU and would like to learn more about us, please contact us through our email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. Following our service at 11:30, please join us as well for a special version of our traditional hospitality hour. You will find the Zoom link on our website or in our weekly email newsletter, the EUU. Our website is www.firstunitarianottawa.ca. This week, instead of our customary 3 breakout groups, we'll stay together to go over plans for the start next week of hybrid worship services, in which a limited number will be able to worship together at church, while the service will also be streamed live. During the continuing responses to COVID, we encourage you to sign up to receive the EUU, our weekly email newsletter, check our Facebook page and our webpage for notices and updates. Our online calendar is as full as ever, albeit much of it virtually. A few announcements this morning from our Environmental Action Group. We are all about the election this week. We need to find leaders who will take the United Nations report on climate change seriously and move us with determination and speed in a positive direction. So, after having listened to this past week's debates and reading up on party platforms, this week's Enviro Action is to make up your mind about who will be the most effective in moving the environmental agenda forward. Election Day is September 20th, but advance voting starts September 10th through 13th. And this week's Enviro Advocacy is to tell federal leaders and local politicians that you are voting for the environment. Sign One Earth, One Vote's petition letter and tell our political leaders that we need a government who will build an equitable, neutral carbon, nature-positive future for all. And our EnviroBit is linked to an upcoming event. Join a webinar and/or watch a YouTube video featuring Seth Klein and his new book, A Good War, Mobilizing Canada for the Climate Emergency. He shows how 4 key lessons learned for Canada's WW2 mobilization could be used by Canadian governments and institutions to take immediate action to help us dramatically reduce our greenhouse gases. Find links and more information for the above in the EUU or on the Climate Confrontation page. Some members have asked how to find the Climate Confrontation page. First, go to the church website, enter the door, and scroll halfway down the page to the Congregational Initiative and the Climate Confrontation logo. Press the logo and you will be there, and it's full of amazing information. Another announcement with regards to Chalice Groups. We are pleased to again be offering Chalice Groups based on the book Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. The groups will begin in October, and we will meet every other week for 12 sessions. We'll be using the excellent material prepared by Reverend Pat to guide us in exploring the many rich themes from braiding sweetgrass, and to deepen our learnings from Robin Wall Kimmerer's unique combination of scientific knowledge and indigenous wisdom. Those of us who participated in past year's Chalice Groups found it to be a deep and meaningful experience, and we encourage you to continue to consider joining the group. If you are interested in being part of a Chalice Group, please contact me, Lisa Boulay. My email address can be found in the EUU. Whatever your heritage, whatever your faith, whomever you love, and however you identify, today you are part of our spiritual community.
Good morning. We light our chalice this morning to these words by Jess Reynolds. Light the candle, cup your hands around the flame, and listen as it whispers. What does it say to your warm and weathered palms? How closely can you listen without flinching? How quietly can you wait for the questions? Light the candle. Breathe against the flame and watch it ripple. Breathe your fears into it and let them burn into trails of empty gray. Let your air embrace the flame and do not snuff it out. Light the candle. Fix your eyes on the center of the flame, the center of being. Look into the darkness at the heart of the light. Reach for the contemplative dark in your own heart, for the place where stillness sits, and do not shy away. Light the candle. Settle into the knowledge that this light is the same as all other lights, burning in all other candles. Look through the flame into the places you have known and the places you have yet to see. Light the candle. Bring into being the flame that bore us all. Our chalice is lit. Now let us sing our chalice lighting song before Nell offers our story for the day.
Chalice, chalice, burning bright, help remind us with your light of holy light to live each day with love and truth, helping lead the way. Hi to everyone, it's Neo, your Director of Religious Exploration. I hope everyone is doing really great on this Sunday. Today I'm sharing with you a story titled Scaredy Squirrel. This is Scaredy Squirrel. Scaredy Squirrel never leaves his tree. He'd rather stay in his safe and familiar tree than risk venturing out into the unknown. The unknown can be a scary place for a squirrel. A few things Scaredy Squirrel is afraid of: green Martians, killer bees, tarantulas, poison ivy, germs, sharks. So he's perfectly happy to stay where he is. Advantages of never leaving the nut tree. Great view, plenty of nuts, safe place. No. Green Martians, killer bees, poison ivy, germs, tarantulas, sharks. Disadvantages of never leaving the nut tree. Same old view, same old nuts, same old place. In Scaredy Squirrel's nut tree, every day is the same. Everything is predictable. All is under control. Wake up, eat a nut, look at view, eat a nut, look at view, eat a nut, look at view, go to sleep. Wake up, eat a nut, look at view, eat a nut, look at view, eat a nut, look at view, go to sleep. But let's say, just for example, that something unexpected did happen. You can rest assured that this squirrel is prepared. A few things in Scaredy Squirrel's emergency kit: hard hat, antibacterial soap, calamine lotion, parachute, bug spray, mask, rubber gloves, net, Band-Aid, sardines. What to do in case of an emergency according to Scaredy Squirrel. Step 1, panic. Step 2, run. Step 3, get kit. Step 4, put on kit. Step 5, consult exit plan. Step 6, exit tree. If there is absolutely, definitely, truly no other option. With his emergency kit in hand, Scaredy Squirrel watches. Day after day, he watches. Until one day, a killer bee appears. Scaredy Squirrel jumps in panic, knocking his emergency kit out of the tree. This was not part of the plan. Scaredy Squirrel jumps to catch his kit. He quickly regrets this idea. The parachute is in the kit. But then something incredible happens. He starts to glide. Scaredy Squirrel is no ordinary squirrel. He's a flying squirrel. Scaredy Squirrel forgets all about the killer bee, not to mention the tarantulas, poison ivy, green Martians, germs, and sharks. He feels overjoyed, adventurous, carefree, alive. That is until he lands in a bush, where he plays dead. 30 minutes later, 1 hour later, 2 hours later. Finally, Scaredy Squirrel realizes that nothing horrible is happening in the unknown today, so he returns to his nut tree. All this excitement has inspired Scaredy Squirrel to make drastic changes in his life. Scaredy Squirrel's new and improved daily routine. Wake up, eat a nut, jump into the unknown, play dead, return home, eat a nut, look at view, eat a nut, look at view, go to sleep. P.S. As for the emergency kit, Scaredy Squirrel is in no rush to pick it up, just yet. Wishing everyone a very happy Sunday. Just to let everybody know, RE will be starting at 9:45 a.m. moving forward in the children's playground. We hope to see you there. Have a great day.
pictures the dreamers, designers, creators, and workers and seers, our own lives expanding, our gratitude commanding, their deeds have made immortal their days and their years. We sing of community now in the making, in every far continent, region, and land, with those of all races, all times and names and places. We pledge ourselves in covenant firmly to stand.
My name is Reverend Ellen Bell. I am the spiritual care visitor for this congregation. This is the time in the service when we accept personal joys and sorrows. We recognize these by dropping pebbles into water and allowing the ripples to take the message out to the universe so that we may commiserate or congratulate. A pebble today is in memory of Paul Holtham. Now, Paul was not a member of this congregation, but his mother Edith was. Paul was 100, by the way. His mother Edith became a very well-known peace activist through this congregation, and she was the one who had established in her name the Edith Holtham Peace Lectures, which are regularly presented in the congregation. These were funded by her 4 sons. In addition, yet again, we send a message of condolences and hope to Afghanistan. And a message again for hope for anybody who's dealing with natural disasters. And COVID is still amongst us. In fact, in some places it's getting worse. So a stone to remind us to maintain our vigilance. And one final stone for all the joys and concerns kept in our hearts. We will now have a moment of silence.
We have 2 brief readings for this morning. The first, an excerpt from The Life We Are Given by George Leonard and Michael Murphy. There is something magical about any intense, tightly knit group of people working together and playing together. A feeling of being in the world while at the same time being apart from it, apart together. We believe that even those of us who have not experienced that magic hear its distant music, feel its ancient call. A transformative community is a nearly indispensable launching pad for transformation. Such a community can create the context and the confidence for a transforming journey. Our second reading is a poem by Paula Underwood. The people formed a circle around the fire, each showing an attentive face to every other person. And they spoke, each waiting quietly till the other had finished, as they had learned to do. A circle of silent listening, framing the wisdom each contained, until the wisdom of all was spoken, contained at last by the circle of the people. Thinking now of the quiet circle of listening hearts, they were filled with understanding of the value of their way. And a firm resolve swept through them. They decided to be a people who would perpetuate and refine this manner of ordered counsel, which they had achieved.
There is so much at play in the cultural atmosphere right now. This morning, rather than trying to make sense of it all, I hope this reflection will weave a line, provide a little clarity among all the various elements at play in our world today. We find ourselves in the midst of the Jewish High Holy Days, the days of awe between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. In the Jewish calendar, that old tradition, the year is now 5782. Yesterday was the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks in New York and Washington, D.C. And this is also the traditional homecoming here at the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa. But as we may not gather for worship until next Sunday, a week from today, please consider this service to be a prelude to our homecoming celebration next week. Regarding what Lisa mentioned earlier in her welcome, I encourage all of you to take part in the conversation that will take place of our general hospitality hour today. We'll be talking about how we might begin hybrid worship services next Sunday, meaning that up to 80 double-vaccinated souls can take part in worship here in person, while others will watch the service online, either streamed as it is or afterward, as you're doing now via YouTube. But back to this week. For many families with children here in Ottawa, this has been the first week of school. I've loved watching parents walk their young students, their young children to classes at the Catholic school down the block from where Ann and I now live. And then I've watched those same parents walk back in small groups, the parents commiserating, comparing notes, likely looking forward to their morning coffee for longer than their summer schedules have allowed. Now, the title I've taken from this morning, The Once and Future Church, or more accurately, The Once and Future Church Revisited, takes inspiration from the classic novel of Arthurian legend by T.H. White, to which Mary Ellen Kubusik, a recent member of our congregation, has asked, what does FirstU 2.0 look like? Or in another way of putting it, what might the future of this faith community be? Mariella, that is the question for us, and the answer, while I think we know it, may take a while yet for us to find words for. This morning I want to focus on the roots of this faith community and the cultural ground upon which we make our home. From that soil and the deep roots here, we will grow and harvest the fruit of our shared endeavor over the weeks, months, and years to come. As I first mentioned to you last spring, the very first thing Reverend Pat, who I follow here, told me about, the first thing Reverend Pat told me about you was that FirstU Ottawa is not afraid to go big. Now, I may look youngish to some of you, but I've been in Unitarian Universalist congregations all of my 57 years, and I've rarely, if ever, heard a Unitarian Universalist minister talk that way of the congregation they've served. First, you are not afraid to go big. Take the negative out, and the message is that you are courageous, even bold in bringing your message to bear, of manifesting your values within the larger society. And you're waiting for what FirstU 2.0 might be? Have I died and gone to ministerial heaven? Wow. Now, the first congregation I served professionally was about a third of your size and saw itself then as the little church that could, taking inspiration from the children's story of that little train engine that could, and by so doing, saved the day. But you are not afraid to go big. I'm with Mariella. I cannot wait to discover what FirstU 2.0 we might shape together. But first, in this time of New Year's and new beginnings, let's take a look at some of your roots. The following words are ones from those preached at the dedication of this building on April 16th, 1967. This is what your Reverend David Pohl said to you then. Now our new building is a reality, embodying in its design and materials the freedom, simplicity, openness, and warmth that are expressive of our faith. This new building should give us renewed enthusiasm for the work on a new day. Little can be taken for granted in the new day that is emerging, he continued. The foundation and fabric of society have been shaken and strained by rapid changes and totally new situations. Still, amid the changes and shifting of ground, certain things abide. The mind's search for meaning and purpose, and the hunger of the human heart for love and beauty. It is my hope, he continued, that our new building will help us more effectively relate abiding values to the new situations and changing conditions of our time. Here, in our worship and our action, our fellowship and service, our leadership and caring, we will give ourselves to those values that both liberate and fulfill the human spirit. Here in this beautiful house of cedar and glass beside the Ottawa, we are challenged to dedicate ourselves as well as our building to the service of those ideals whose embodiment will help make the new day a better day. Before my time with you began, my overarching sense of church work was that while no single congregation can do everything, any congregation, any community of faith can do anything it sets its minds and hands to. Now that sense of mine has been tested, if not outright shaken, by my sense of all you have chosen to accomplish. It's the big items as well as the little nuggets that capture my attention in the histories that I've read. The larger include sponsoring refugee families and providing sanctuaries from refugees from far-flung places from here, as Bangladesh and Nepal, providing space for Ottawa's Reconstructionist congregation and other groups, such as in years past, Amnesty International Canada, and now other phenomenal groups who are making such a positive difference in the city and the world. You have built a renowned Unitarian house, and a little later given home to the Riverside Parkway Children's Center, a beacon of support and love and learning of young people. Your current interest in further campus developments and the recent addition of the Ajaski Food Security Garden just out those windows below. As Jocelyn Lofelholtz-Ray accounts in her history of the congregation, your first minister, the Reverend Albert Walkley, among other things, spoke out against compulsory public vaccinations. I wonder if he would say the same thing today. He might well. Whatever the case, I think a conversation with him would be an interesting, if not absolutely illuminating one, I'm sure. And then there's the account, and this is one of those little things, of Reverend Pohl and another member of this congregation bringing beers over to members of a work crew working on a nearby building to refresh them on a hot afternoon. I'd never considered doing that in the ministry, but just when I was starting out in the ministry, David Pohl was the director of the Department of Ministry of the Unitarian Universalist Association, the denomination. Just after Easter in my first year, he gathered all the first-year ministers together to ask us how we're doing, to share stories with one another, share support, and he gave us the best wisdom he could. Now, he didn't offer us beer, but he made sure we had time in our schedule and our days together so we could go out together and find some of our own. Both the formal time together and the informal time of those days provided helpful memories I've gone to again and again down the years. Also among the quieter gleanings I've taken note of are the copper enamel dishes just behind me, the work of your former religious educator, Ann Orton, and the children of the congregation when this building, this worship hall, was still brand new. And in the back of the hall, Tom Doherty's broken glass screens, the light coming through them. And if you're sitting in the pews, you have to turn your back to see it, but I'm sure those glass panels have inspired speaker upon speaker over the years. I loved the story of all the pie sales that raised $16,000 for your Steinway. Now that's how to make something happen. And the brilliant and touching remarks young Jahan Korsted, then 14, offered at the end of their About Sexuality class, the comprehensive human sexuality education offered by our congregations, and now it's been changed. It's now called Our Whole Lives. In my last address to you 2 weeks ago today, I talked about all of this being ways we might best prepare ourselves and one another for taking hold and doing the work of the world. And as this day is the day after the 20th anniversary of the September 11th, 2001 attacks, I'm thinking back to that day when so much changed. Lives were lost, and so was the innocence of many, certainly of those south of the border in the States. Personally, my divorce to my first wife had gone through that July. Jennifer had moved to New York to live with Melissa, her new love and now lasting wife. Jennifer, with a doctorate in musicology and fledgling career as a Baroque opera conductor, was working as a legal assistant in a Manhattan legal office, in an office just 6 blocks from the World Trade Center. When I heard the news of those attacks on my way to work that morning, I was in California then, 3 time zones behind the East Coast. I called Melissa. Jennifer was okay. And on her way, walking home to Queens from the subway station in Manhattan, a walk no other New Yorker on any other day would have dreamed of. Thinking back to that day, I hear the message of a true poet, in this case, Dina Metzger, calling me, calling us forward. Her words. There are those who are trying to set fire to the world. We are in danger. There is only time to work slowly. There is no time not to love. There is only time to work slowly. There is no time not to love. Recently, I was reminded of a story to come out of the flagship congregation of the capital city of the nation to our south here in Canada, namely the All Souls Unitarian Church in Washington, D.C. During the days when desegregation was a hot topic of debate and consternation, their minister, the Reverend James Luther Adams, asked a simple question to his congregation over and over again. He asked, "What is the purpose of this church? What is the purpose of this church?" Finally, after weeks, if not months of this, an exasperated church elder who had not been in favor of taking a stand that might be at all risky answered, "Damn it, it's to get a hold of people like me and change us." Now, generally, clergy delight in this little story. Please let me know if your response is different. And still, I find myself asking the same question Reverend Adams asked back then. I'm wanting a clearer picture of the purpose of this congregation. What is the purpose of FirstU? As I mentioned this week when talking for the first time with our Committee on Shared Ministry, getting a sense of the center of things in a Unitarian Universalist context is often, if not always, tricky business. This congregation has acted as urban planners, principled hosts, safe harbor, and a lifeline of support for refugees and their families, and much, much more. But these are but spokes of the proverbial wheel. What's the center? For me, for myself, what I feel most called to do in my ministry and my life is to follow a charge given me by a member of my family's congregation, the group I belonged to and attended when I was coming of age. During a visit back home while I was in seminary, a church friend of my mother, a Mrs. Georgette Driscoll, then all of 93 years alive and kicking, took up the role of sage and told me that for her, Ministry is about making the fullness of life more accessible. Now, that may sound overly simplistic to some of you, making the fullness of life more accessible, but it resonates for me still. Unitarian and Universalism, as I understand it at least, takes as its starting point our experience of living in this world and forms principles and values and protocols and guidelines based on that, our lived experience. Not the other way around, like most other religions practice. The world we temporarily inhabit is a beautiful, wondrous one. Let us make the place we call home, the societies we create to sustain us, and all those who will come after, worthy of the beauty and majesty and promise of this world. Before I close this reflection to you, another poem. Here is Seamus Heaney's, an excerpt, Seamus Heaney's Voices from Lemnos. It may be familiar to you, at least in part. Human beings suffer. They torture one another. They get hurt and get hard. No poem or play or song can fully right a wrong inflicted and endured. History says don't hope on this side of the grave. But then, once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice can rise up, and hope and history rhyme. So hope for a great sea change on the far side of revenge. Believe that a farther shore is reachable from here. Believe in miracles and cures and healing wells. Call miracle self-healing, the utter self-revealing double take of feeling. If there's fire on the mountain and lightning and storm and a God speaks from the sky, that means someone is hearing the outcry and the birth cry of a new life at its turn. It means that once in a lifetime, that justice can rise up and hope and history rhyme. May this place be one that continues to inspire the rise of justice and be a place where hope and history can indeed rhyme. Or as David Paul put it in his first Sunday address in this room, in this hall of worship, we gather to celebrate life and to reaffirm our commitment to those values that make life sacred. Here, in this house of cedar and glass, beneath the arching northern sky, beneath these soaring beams, we shall build and nurture ties of community that welcome all and exclude none. Here, with the Gatineau Hills looking down on us like a faithful sentinel, may we be ever aware of our place in the nature of things and of our mission to help shape a future where earth shall be fair and all her people one. May the conversation as to how best to do so and the work of this church in responding to the needs of the world continue long. So may it be. Amen.
This is the time in our service that we usually accept the offering. You may go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how you might keep up with your pledge or to make a donation during these very unusual times. We give these gifts freely. We receive these gifts gratefully. We dedicate these gifts to the work of our congregation, serving human wholeness, caring for the planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other, to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
This morning, let us extinguish our chalice with a responsive reading crafted by the Reverend Rob Eller Isaacs, inspired by the Jewish tradition of seeking atonement at the start of the new year. Now, responsive readings were not made, it has to be admitted, with online worship in mind, so I'm going to need your help. The refrain is, "We forgive ourselves and each other, we begin again in love." Please say it along with me. We forgive ourselves and each other, we begin again in love. Thank you. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time we have struck out in anger without just cause, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For the selfishness which sets us apart and alone, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit and for losing sight of our unity, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For those and for so many other acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of our separateness, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. This morning's chalice is extinguished, but our connections and our faith remain.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Could vide spy de justice, dénudez-moi, ciel emporte-moi, source de vie, viens vers moi, viens vers moi.
Go in peace. Go in love, go in joy, and may all be well.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.